Flashback 6.2 Bill Gates to Hell. Opened. Hell on Earth begun. Dr. Caselli turned to me. Richard, it has been a while since we met. There were some dramatic events in the world outside since we met. In fact, there was a fateful trifecta. There was a virulent renewal of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the evolved strain attacked elderly Caucasians with higher levels of testosterone. It primarily kills older, white males. Consequently, the fast response lockdowns were lifted for everyone except white men over 50 years old. White men over 50 years old can be released once they receive all current vaccines and boosters. And Taiwanese chip makers aligned with China to avoid being invaded by them. Taiwan was worried, and inflation has shot through the roof overnight because of chip scarcity fears. Electronics, vehicles, infrastructure, they've all been threatened to be locked in time using older, established chips, while Taiwan and China innovate higher capability chips for themselves and their allies exclusively. We are not a China ally. The National Security Agency, the NSA, they have warned that they are aware of a backdoor hack vulnerability in many of our older chips, but that we cannot replace them without newer ones. And no one is willing to come to our aid now and give us new ones, given the Taiwan-China alliance. Richard, it turned out those established chips had those backdoors that could be exploited to disable any device that was using them. Much of our telecommunications or telco cell towers use those chips, and they have been disabled by hackers, leaving communications spotty throughout the entire country, presumably using the NSA's cautioned backdoors. It has highlighted how remarkably dependent we are on our cell towers for internet, texting, phone calls, video conferencing, emails, everything. The NSA has indicated it is unclear if the hackers originated from China, as they expected, because they are effective at spoofing their location. Telecommunications are down and have been down for the most 3 months or more. It's been like living in the dark ages. And people have reacted to the craziness very poorly, making things even worse, Richard. The stock market has been panicked, causing more consternation and craziness. And of course, the overreaction by everyone from this trifecta hitting them and having no meaningful communications about it, or to anyone because they're cut off, it has left people to panic and sell stocks whenever they have connections, at great losses. And looting and non-violent demonstrations, as they call them, people who have been victims of inequity are rising to take back what they think is theirs. Sadly, human nature has kicked in for people that have suffered that inequity, and they have been forced to loot those businesses and express their rage in mostly non-violent demonstrations. It was as if the world had utterly gone insane for these last few months, Richard. We can see how things can be on the edge, even for mentally grounded, sane people. Caselli continued, fortunately, because this pandemic hits primarily the elderly, obese, males of Caucasian ancestry, well, I'm not likely to get the strain, Richard, because I am not an old white man. Our panel of doctors are engaging remotely, and so they have no risk attending these conferences through video. Caselli emphasized, I remained distant until we could feel confident that you would not be exposed to a deadly pathogen or virus from me. I waited until science could confirm there was safety. We know that I will not contract the virus, so we are now okay to continue. It seemed to me that Dr. Caselli was worried if he could get sick, and could care less if I, the old white male, got sick or died. My mind went to a pretty dark place. I recalled how much Bill Gates had invested in biotech companies and farms and nuclear energy firms. Bill's farm investments included farms and food processing plants that he purchased globally. DNA-enhanced food, which was lobbied not to be genetically modified organisms or GMO, because they assert it would have been possible to evolve the new food over time on its own. So it's not really genetically modified. It was accelerated. Or DNA-grown food, which was lobbied as a safe and appropriate new food. New farms, as they called them, grew meat in labs from DNA strands taken from animals. There's DNA-grown chicken, DNA-grown beef, DNA-grown exotic animals, DNA-grown extinct animals like woolly mammoth and T-Rex, DNA-grown you. Yeah, that's right. Growing meat from your own DNA so that you could eat it. Disgusting and gross. Is there no such thing as a human mad cow disease? But allegedly, this is all to solve the world's food and hunger crises. And then there were Bill's medicine investments. That's right. Medicine and medicine component acquisition and distributions globally. He was making in-clinic and pharmacy AI automated medicine compounding and mixing. The idea was to remove the need for big pharma pre-made pills, injections, or liquid medications. And Bill had medical testing and diagnostic investments, in-clinic, immediate blood and urine and DNA testing, all processed in the cloud with the latest tech and science applied. Bill's DNA-based medical treatment investments, yeah. They were bespoke DNA edit treatments and vaccines, as they like to call them, via a cloud AI that operated a drug and shipment lab. Offerings have included things, but are not limited to for sure, preventing and curing cancers and hair loss, enhancing sexual virility, memory retention, changing hair and eye color, even skin pigment. Improved Human 2.0 via Human Enhancement Refinements, or they called it the HER Project, H-E-R. I guess they were wanting every person to identify as a her through DNA editing. I swear we are entering a reality of the science fiction movie Gattaca. And of course, vaccines and immune system boosters. All of these were Bill's perpetual vaccines. They seem to endlessly come, to be more about chasing the harms from the previous vaccines and the compromised natural immune systems they caused. So you had to have more vaccines to deal with the fact that you could no longer resist things yourself. It was once vaccinated, stay vaccinated, or die. Allegedly, aged body rejuvenation and aging suspension were available through DNA treatments for the extreme elite and wealthy and powerful. Bill Gates also invested in small modular reactors, or SMRs. The idea was to bring nuclear energy anywhere in the world, remotely, no dependence on anyone. It would make the energy grid distributed. It would remove dependence on fossil fuels, and it would provide local nuclear fuels for medical grade use from the SMR spent fuel radioactive waste. And Bill would gain access in every country and locality with top secret nuclear level clearance with no questions asked. Bill was close partners with Warren Buffett and many other wealthy billionaires and influencers. They control significant portions of the world's transport industries like shipping, ports, rail, and trucking. I wondered what evil might be at work with these specific investments and related acquisitions. Bill made a mint off the pandemic, or should I say the pandemics. With all the testing and mandated so-called vaccines and relentless booster jabs of which he was paid a royalty on every last single one. It was conceivable that Bill was entirely legitimately investing in humanity to improve and save it through science and technology. But it seemed possible to me. Bill was actually masterminding a global dependence on his energy, food, and medical care by deprecating and undermining or destroying existing farms, existing energy companies and grids, and bypassing big and small pharmaceutical and medical treatment providers. All while collecting DNA samples with detailed medical records and personal identifying information that he could associate people with. And that he could infuse DNA editing viruses or bacteria into the food supply, or aerosol that he could infuse into our medications. Bill had made many ways to put stuff inside every human being or animal's bodies. Bill could be plotting to change the very human race's DNA into a subservient, non-violent Neanderthal race that would serve him and his elites, all beneath him and the super elite allies. I realized right then, Mr. Lesky of Midnight and Associates had told me about the devil, a crowned king prince of hell named Bael, also known as Lucifer, Satan. And he spoke of another 6 princes of hell that served him. And they had armies of demons at their disposal, hordes of evil at their command, in hell and some on the mortal world. Lesky said they would make deals with the most powerful and evil of souls and forge unholy bonds with them between hell and the mortal plane. This way, he explained, they could exert their greatest influence and bestow celestial powers upon them and use them through them. And if these princes of hell had made pacts with people, they could propel to great power and influence those people. Bill Gates fit that description perfectly. Perhaps he was one of those mortals that made a deal with the devil, or at least a prince of hell. A prince of hell could literally bestow celestial powers on and through Bill Gates. It made sense. Bill Gates made a pact with the prince of hell, if not directly with hell's king Bael, with Lucifer, Satan, the big D, whatever you want to call the devil. It explained Bill's success and his shift towards world-dominating and controlling investments and organizations from pure computer technology and software. And if Bill was a prince of hell or a servant to one here on the mortal plane, on Earth, then who might the other princes of hell be on Earth? I surmised it was likely that Bill's fellow billionaires and the World Economic Forum cronies. They would likely be the princes of hell's puppets. Wow. Bill was the gates to hell. He opened his gates to hell and exposed. He allowed the devil to enter him and taint and bring darkness to he and our world. And he would be forever corrupted and become the prideful puppet of the Lord and King, Prince of Hell, Bael. Bill Gates became Bael's puppet and the embodiment of pride of the 7 deadly sins. Somehow it just hit me, like the knowledge was inserted into my head from God. I just knew who the 7 princes of hell on earth were, and precisely who their puppets were. Those that did their bidding under direct instruction from their respective prince of hell. It was as if their identities were inserted into my head after connecting Lesky's insight with the Devil Pact and Bill Gates' investments and partnerships. It felt like God granted me the knowledge. Just like that, I knew it as truth, as fact. the real people serving the 7 princes of hell and their 7 deadly sins. They were Bael, Lucifer, Satan, the sin Pride, his puppet Bill Gates, controlling farms, energy, and biotech, Belial, prince of hell, his sin Wrath, his puppet George Soros, politics, chaos, liberalism, and the prince of hell Mammon, the sin of greed, World Economic Forum Joseph Ackerman, banking and business, and the prince of hell Leviathan, the sin of envy, Klaus Schwab himself, founder of the World Economic Forum, political madman, prince of hell Asmodeus, the sin of lust, was World Economic Forum's neuroscientist Susan Hawkfield, the prince of hell Beelzebub, the sin of gluttony. His puppet was Ernesto Zedillo, also of the World Economic Forum, focusing on governments. And finally, the prince of hell Belphegor, the sin of sloth, was Sir Anthony Charles Linton Blair, aka Tony Blair, of the World Economic Forum, and previously a UK Prime Minister and member of the G7 and G20. I had finally connected what Mr. Lesky was saying to me about my birth year and birthday being so important. I was a leap day born Millmore descendant in the leap year of 1968. The World Economic Forum, aka WEF, was founded in 1971 formally. They must have been preparing its formation the day I was born. So it would be publicly founded those few years later and have no apparent connection to me. I was born in 1968 and they formed it in 1971. And from what Lesky and Bracco had said, the WEF, its goal was to make the world so awful that I would see how horrible humankind really was, and that would make me think humankind should be damned to eternal torment in hell, because I would have lost faith in humankind being good itself. Instead, I, as the fulcrum, would have been convinced that humankind was inherently evil, and thus the devil would win, and all humankind would be damned to his control and torment in hell. Crazy. The fate of humankind was like a teeter-totter, pivoting over me, the fulcrum. And if the left, sinister side touches the ground, humankind is damned. And if the right side of the teeter-totter just touches the ground, humankind is blessed to enter heaven. But it is I, the fulcrum, that it teeters and totters on. It is I who really decides, apparently, whether mankind is damned or blessed. With my revelation, it reinforced how important it was to get out of the psych ward and back to God's mission quest. I had already been locked up way too long, but for now, it was not quite time to act. Dr. Caselli seemed puzzled at me as I sat there in my deep thought and epiphanies about the 7 princes of hell and Bill Gates and George Soros and the World Economic Forum. Caselli barked, "Let's get this party going, shall we, Richard? Let's hear more about your childhood." And so I began recounting my memories.